Okay, with that, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody being here. Yeah, this is the Tech Communications Workshop. I'll go sort of over who I am in a minute and kind of what we all do. But just as some general reminders, please keep yourself muted unless you're asking questions. We'll have a couple of question opportunities throughout the talk tonight. But if you want to throw something in the chat, that's totally fine. Either one of us, one of the staff members will catch it, or me or Danny who are presenting tonight. So no matter what, we'll absolutely get to your question. Just drop it in the chat if you don't have a time. But with that, here's kind of the loose agenda. So we'll be doing some team introductions. A lot of these people you probably have already interacted with, but can't hurt to reintroduce them. Do some resume refreshers, web presence and personal branding, which is really, really important in technology. Talking a bit about how to talk about your projects, and how to present technical topics and talk about technical topics. Technical interviewing. Landing your first tech role, what's kind of expected of you, and sort of the how long that might take and some of the process there, and then just a general wrap up and Q&A. But that's sort of the loose agenda. Careers team introductions. So Shannon Sheehy is the manager of the careers team here. She is the person who organizes a whole lot of the events and things that we do. She's also a really great person to reach out to. If you're really not sure who to reach out to, she can tell you. So no worries there. I'm David York. I am one of the technical project managers here at CodeU. We'll go over a little bit more what that is in a little bit. But Danny Morton is presenting here with me tonight. Say hey, Danny.
Hey, everybody. I'm the co-host, and I'll be taking over different portions. I'm excited for it.
We have Candy Hall, who is one of the technical career coaches. She's for Eastern Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, and Central Kentucky. You might have interacted with her on the resume requirement at some point, but she's really great for stuff like that. Jenny Terry is the same, just in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area. And then we have Allie Rippey, who is our employer relationship manager. She makes sure all of our Slack channels that are focused on jobs are populated, make sure that we continue to have really good relationships with a lot of the employers we work with. But yeah, that's kind of the quick rundown. You can DM any of us anytime on Slack. We'd be happy to talk to you more. What does the careers team even do? We do resume reviews. We do mock interviews. Those are really, really, really helpful. In my experience, mock interviews are super great because the only way to get better interviewing is to interview. And that's a really low stakes way to do it. We host a lot of hiring and networking events, even events that we don't necessarily host. We try and keep pretty decent tabs on. So in the Slack channel tech events, you can find a whole lot of those. We also give you general advice and insight on leading a successful job hunt, some of the pitfalls that we've run into and some of the issues that we've seen other people encounter so that you don't make the same mistakes. It makes it a lot easier for you. Our Slack channel or Slack channels are really great for hot job leads. So we post basically every job that we come across that we have a connection there. We throw them there. We have tons and tons of those all the time. There's some really, really good ones in there. Do not sleep on that. It's really important. The Tech Careers newsletter is also really important. If you're not familiar with that, you probably don't get it yet. You'll get it once you graduate, though. So no worries on that. And then me and Danny, we help you to keep building technical projects. We really want to make sure that your portfolios are really robust, really solid, and your projects are something that you're really proud of, and that you keep learning past the courses, and that's what we do. If you're interested in that, we can definitely work with you after you graduate. Let us know, talk with us, and we can set something up. On the topic of Slack channels, if you haven't joined the jobs channels yet, you definitely should do that. Best way to do that is going to either the web version of Slack or the app version. On the left-hand side, you'll see a tab that says channels. Click the drop-down arrow. Once you click that, you can click manage and then browse channels. It'll take you to a screen very similar to the one on the right. And you can type in #jobs. It'll display every jobs channel that we got. Join as many of them as you wish, but that's where we post all of our really, really good leads. If you ever see a post from Allie or someone else that says like, hey, reach out to me if you apply to this, please do that. The reason we have you do that is so we can refer you and let our contact know that one of our graduates or one of our participants is applying. That really can help you get pulled, your resume pulled, I mean. Really important stuff. But with all of that out of the way, we'll get into the actual workshop. So web presence and personal branding is really important in tech. Sort of positioning yourself as someone who knows what they're doing in tech is really quite important. And one of the best ways to do that is via social medias, honestly. So I know that GitHub is also up here. That is a pretty public facing tool. And so a lot of people kind of treat it a bit like a social media. You really should have a pretty robust profile, have a decent README that talks a little bit about you. Things like that, really important. LinkedIn is where you're probably going to see the most from people, honestly. Having a really built out, nice, solid profile can really help get eyes on your resume and really help you get looked at more seriously by employers. If you don't build out your LinkedIn, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to kick you out of any like job running or anything, but it's a real missed opportunity. And I know that I've had some people reach out to me over jobs just because of how my LinkedIn looked. So it's definitely worth pouring a little bit of time into that. Building connections there also shows that you're invested in the tech scene. People do care about that. Shows that you're able to connect interpersonally between people, and that's really important to a lot of tech companies. I will say employers will absolutely Google you if they are interested in hiring you. If you have like kind of a sketchy past on the internet, have some weird posts on Twitter or whatever, maybe you want to private that or delete them because they will find them. So please Google yourself. Make sure that what you see is actually what you want someone else to see. As for examples, here's a really good LinkedIn example in our opinions. That's Christina Smith. She was a demo day presenter for us. Great student, graduated a bit back now works at Virtual Peaker. But few major notes. She has a fully written out about section that talks about her interests in software development, her interests outside of it, why she decided to kind of go into this. Her profile links back to her GitHub, which is really great. So you can sort of find everything in one place. She has on all of her previous jobs and her current work, has the descriptions of those completely written out so you know actually what she did there, because job titles can be kind of confusing. So you don't really have to guess what she did as a technical support specialist. It just says it on the page. I would say focus really heavily on transferable skills, like soft skills is what the industry calls them. Those are really great, like communication, teamwork, things like that. Super useful, super valuable to have on there. Real quick, something I did want to mention and that I totally forgot to mention at the beginning, you will get this slide deck as well as a recording of this later. So don't sweat like trying to make sure that you catch every little bit on some of these slides. But with that, we're going to hop over to Danny for GitHub.
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at her GitHub profile, and it's a good example as well. So we'll start at the left column. So we'll notice that she used the same profile photo, which is awesome because if you found her through LinkedIn, you get to her profile, you know it's the same person. If you go down a little bit, she's got her LinkedIn profile. So if you click that, you know that it's still the same person. It's definitely super helpful. I just, tried to find a couple people and it was a nightmare to try and figure out who was who. Bob Smith and stuff like that. But you see that she's got some followers and some people are following her. So that's awesome. She's active there. She's got those achievement badges. Those are from doing like pull requests and things like that. So we see that she's active and she's done some stuff. She's got a nice about me when we're moving over to the right section. We see that she's got a bunch of projects in there. And then the important part is the pinned projects. And this helped her get her job. Well, her internship, then her job. But she's got her capstone project there at the left. That was her Parklopedia. It was a fantastic project. And then she researched the company that she was wanting to get a job with and found out they used the Vue framework. So she went ahead and did a project in Vue. That way, whenever she applied and then she got that interview, they saw that she had some work in that framework. So she wasn't completely new to that experience. And then you see her commit history down there. You see that she's been pretty active and committing over a span of time. And from there, we'll drop down. So with all this, we're going to keep in mind that what employers are looking for is a problem-solving mindset. So they want to see your thought and thinking through different approaches, you trying new and challenging tasks, looking for answers to questions that you ask and conveying that information clearly and showing that you can work in a team. And that's important for the upcoming part, which is we'll look at the projects. So here we're looking at her repos, and that first one is just that about me section, but we see that she's got that view from Mars. So that was her playing in that framework and learning that. We've got that Parklopedia. And then this is like going above and beyond. She was learning some GitHub actions, and those are just a series of tests that you set up that run on your repos, and they do a wild variety of things, from deploying your website to checking it for linting or making sure it runs or running a whole series of tests. But she did a whole little exercise on that. So as an employer, you're very excited to see that. I'm like, oh, that's one less thing that we're really going to have to like dive in from scratch. She's got some kind of experience with it, some frame of reference. And also kind of tying back to that problem solving and showing that you set out to solve problems and you can clearly communicate. We're going to look at a README, which is one of the most important things in your project. So I know everybody kind of saves those for the last and doesn't put a lot of work into them, but it's super important. That is the eyes to your project. That's what all the eyes come and see. And many folks are never going to make it past this. A lot of people won't download it. They'll just kind of read through it, see that you did some stuff, and go on from there. Unless they're actually going to download it and run it or hire you, then they might go more in depth. But this kind of is the insight to you and your project. So with that, you've got your title. She's got that cool badge up there. That is one of the GitHub actions. You'll see that on repos. It says that it was good. It means that a test ran and it passed that. And then it jumps down into the overview and it gives you a brief overview of what that project is. Again, that's super important. I've seen some really cool projects that were just, this is my blank project. And that's it. There's nothing else in the README. And you're like, oh man, well, I don't even know how you run this thing. So getting into that, she's got that API information. So it's links out to the sites where you're going to have to download those API keys. And then she runs you through everything that you need to get that site up and running on your machine, how to clone it, what dependencies you'll install, all that good stuff. And then down here at the bottom, there's that feature section to the right. And that's, again, clearly stating that, hey, these are the problems that I was seeking to solve inside my project, and this is how I did it. So lets everybody know that you set out to do this project with a purpose and not just for fun. But ideally both.
Yeah, I would say too, with projects, don't stop improving them. Once you build something that you kind of like, keep adding features to it, keep doing stuff with it, add new technologies that you think are neat. I know that the capstone project is kind of a tight deadline, or it definitely feels that way. So there might be some features, some things you didn't have the opportunity to implement. Go back and implement those later. That is a really good way to kind of keep beefing up your portfolio. Ask mentors and classmates for feedback. Find jobs that you really think are interesting, and add some of those technologies to your previous projects, or build out smaller micro projects around those things. That's a really good way to learn. I don't know about you all, but I can't learn any kind of technology thing unless I actually mess with that tool. I just can't. I can't pick it up, right? So that's the best way to do it, is building micro projects. While you're building stuff, a lot of people don't do this, but go the extra mile. Post on LinkedIn about what you're doing, about what you're up to. If you want to go really crazy, you can make a YouTube video about it. I don't know of anyone from here that's done that. Maybe people have. That'd be really sweet. But no matter what, the LinkedIn thing is really valuable. It gets in front of people. People at least see your name a lot, and they kind of start to associate you with, like, hey, that Danny guy really seems to know what he's doing, right? Because he keeps posting stuff. Leet Code is a super good way to keep your skills sharp. It has a tons of problems on the website. It's awesome. Some of them are extremely hard. There's some areas that I feel really comfortable in tech, and I've gotten some of these questions horrifically wrong, so don't feel bad if you miss stuff on there. That it's practice. That's what it's for. But it's really great, and it's free. I will say too, contributing to open source projects is super great. A lot of those organizations have Slacks and Discord channels to kind of keep up with what they're doing and discuss things. Danny, you have some notes on that, actually.
Yeah, so it definitely can be intimidating to jump in there and try to commit to an open source project and do, it might be your first PR, which is your pull request. So that's when you go in and you add a feature, fix something, and then you submit it and it gets reviewed. Especially when you're new, because you might be struggling a little bit here and there and just not feeling fully confident yet. But definitely don't let those nerves stop you from doing it. Give it a shot. We got a link up there, so first timers only. That's a cool little site that curates a bunch of easy pull requests. We're going to say easy in quotes. They vary. What's easy for me might not be for the other person, but they're lower hanging pull requests that are inside their repo. And a lot of open source projects, they find just a bunch of stuff that's wrong, and it might be, hey, there's some spelling errors or some style changes that need to be made, etc. And they're working on bigger, fancier features, so they'll just put them on things like that, and then people will go in and actually make some changes. So I'll give an example. Like in Python, there's a library called pandas, and I made a pull request to that. Super intimidating. Went in there and looked at it. And, I developed a feature that I liked a lot that they didn't quite have, and it was handled through another library that you had to import in to make it work. So I thought I was doing them a favor by making this, and read through the 8 pages of how you submit the pull request and how you got to pass the test, yada, yada, yada. Did not understand any of it. So just went ahead and made that pull request and just wrote, like, hey, I developed this feature. I think it's really cool. It saves a bunch of time. It's less processor intensive, yada, yada, yada. And I don't know how to make it pass all the tests or even do that. So here you go. One of the senior devs on the team, he messaged me back and was like, hey, saw it, ran it, works great. The reason it's not built in is because this and this, and we use that library for this. It was like, it's much faster and better. I think that pulled it into the side as maybe a thing for later, but nothing that's going to happen now or anytime soon. But definitely a pretty cool experience. And, if you do enough stuff like that, you'll start to make those connections, and that's a good end to the industry. So don't be afraid to do that. You can also do group projects. So make some friends with your fellow students, and together y'all can make a project. That's a huge thing that employers want to see, because while it's great that you can commit to GitHub, there's a whole other set of steps whenever you're working in a team and making new branches. And inevitably, you're going to work on the same file, and you're going to have merge conflicts, and you're going to have to learn how to debug that and how to manually pull in code and all that good stuff. So they love to see that you've got some kind of experience with that, because it takes a whole set of planning and everything before you start to work, and then a lot of troubleshooting to make all that work well. And so, big question we get a lot from folks is, how many projects should you have? So as that slide says, the limit does not exist. It's very true. You definitely need more than one. I always use a former student as an example. There's only one person I've saw that has gotten a job from having one project, but they had a PhD in math, and turns out they just really wanted her for her math skills. So she was just writing complex math formulas to make their stuff better. And they're like, you can learn the coding down the road. Like, we just need the math skills. So she got in there and did great. But otherwise, us normal folks have to build up those projects and show off those skills, and have a proven track record of, I've done some cool stuff, and I've implemented new features, and I've started to check off all those boxes that are on the job descriptions. And with all that being said, we want to do progress over perfection. So, like David said, it's great to keep working on your capstone project, but once you get it to a nice point, maybe you do implement a feature or two after you turn it in. It's definitely great to go ahead and start another project, because then it's just showing that you can work on something else and start that idea from scratch. You're going to learn a bunch of new stuff, and you're going to be able to implement different designs and things like that you've learned throughout that project. And then after another project or two, I always like to go back to old projects. So like, go back to your capstone done, and then you could implement some of those other features that were pending, because they'll be much easier to do now. Or you'll go back and be like, oh man, I was handling that API all wrong, and I could do this, and I can make it better here. And that all looks really good. You've got that Git history log, so you could go back to an employer and like, oh yeah, it started out like this, and then I learned a bunch of stuff, and this is the current state of it now. You've got that track record to show that you've improved your skills, and you've got a bunch of projects along the way with it. So now we're going to get into talking about your projects. So this is super important. This is a big reason that we included that capstone interview section to the projects. It's not to trip you up or any gotchas. It's to get you used to talking about coding and the tech you used, and talking to other people about it. So we have a variety of people on the team, and that's just something great to get practice on. So, practice talking to your parents about it, or your siblings, any family. You're going to talk to them a lot differently than you're going to talk to a fellow developer. So learning how to talk tech to that person and then to a fellow tech person, they're kind of two different skills. And that, goes really far. That gets into those soft skills and becomes super valuable in the workplace. So you can talk to the CEO, he's walking around checking on everybody, or, is on a call with you, and you can explain what you're working on in a way that he understands. It's going to look a lot better than if you're going into super technical jargon. He's just eyes are glazed over. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what are you doing? So definitely good there. So we're going to jump into data storytelling. So that's just more of talking to folks and being able to kind of switch the way that you're speaking to the proper party. That way everybody's an understanding, and you're communicating correctly. So a good example of that is, say, that CEO hits you on Slack and jumps on a call with you or something because y'all pushed something and the whole application went down. So rather than being like, we encountered an issue with Docker Compose, our configuration file had an issue with the versioning, and the container orchestration failed, resulting in cascading service outages across the whole AWS environment. We corrected this by yada, yada, yada. He's not in tech. He's not going to know that if he's just running the company. So something more understandable, but like, hey, the issue we had was with the file that we deployed out to the cloud. It ended up causing an error and crashing. So we were able to revert the files back and just restart your server. So that 2-minute outage you saw was only because the servers had to reboot, and we're working on correcting those issues so that when we have to update, it doesn't crash again. So much more concise and understandable to a wider audience. And the way that you're going to talk to somebody on the marketing team is going to be even a little different, and you'll want to just kind of narrow down what you're talking to. You don't have to talk about the Docker containers or the AWS portions. The marketing team's probably going to want to know about some UI, UX elements that you changed for them. And they don't need to know all the nitty gritty details of you had to do this and this and this. Just let them know that, hey, we did that. We ran some tests. They passed accessibility. Everything's great. And, even just various other people on the team, just meeting them where they're at. So, talking to a stakeholder, you might have to jump on a call with a customer and they're going to want to know where it's at. You don't have to get into all the details for most of them. Just letting them know that, hey, it's on track. We actually finished this feature up. So we're actually looking like we're going to be able to finish this portion of the application up sooner for you or get this update in. Things like that really go a long way. And the customers definitely appreciate things like that. And a lot of that, it just sounds like it's obvious, but a lot of this stuff is new to folks, and it is kind of a difficult skill, especially like when you get real into the tech jargon. Like you just assume that everybody knows, what a Docker container is or what different AWS items are, an S3 bucket or Kubernetes and things like that. So definitely, practice that skill.
Before we move on to the next section, does anybody have any questions or anything like that? Yeah, go ahead.
So earlier, I guess had mentioned about like the README section for like the projects that we do. Would you recommend having us create a README even for assignments that we did for CodeU, even though they're not necessarily projects that we did on our own? And if so, would it be best for us to go back and create a README for all those previous projects that we've done for CodeU?
My personal opinion is that yes, absolutely. READMEs are really great ways to explain what something is whenever somebody lands on it. And stuff like those assignments can be a little confusing. If you just run across someone's GitHub, you're like, what is all this? So the READMEs are a really good explanation as to what that stuff is and why it's around. So I say absolutely. Plus, it's really good practice for building out READMEs for much bigger, more robust projects. Danny, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with that. And it's a big service to yourself as well. You'll probably be able to look back on it and you'll remember what you did, but you might forget how to run that project. Like you're in web dev, once you start working in frameworks and things like that, it's a whole different animal to go back to like vanilla JavaScript. And, you'll be like, oh, I don't even remember how you boot this project up. Or, when you're working in data, you might have been using something else, some different libraries or something. And if you don't make a note of it, you'll go back and be like, I don't understand why things aren't working, or I didn't make a requirements file, so like I can't install any of my things. I don't know what's going on. So
And then,
definitely great.
right, I gotcha. And then another quick question is whenever it comes to creating a resume and you're including the project, I've never done coding before, so this kind of just as an example. Of course, currently the main project that I'm doing is the capstone. So of course that is one of the project that I will be including on my resume. I had done two separate projects on on the side that are not fully finished. Just something that I've been kind of dabbling on here and there. Is that something that I should include in the resume as well, even though they're not finished? And at the same time, would I kind of clarify in the way that Jenny and Kenny had mentioned it, just kind of mention what the name of the project is going to be, kind of give a brief description, but know that, like, give an indication to the company that I'm applying for that, hey, this is in progress, but not fully complete just yet.
Yeah, I would say absolutely add those, but definitely make sure to tell people that it's not fully done yet, and that is totally cool. Yep, definitely
Yeah.
add them though.
On my resume, I have particular project that I just have working next to it. And then anytime I learn new skills, I'll usually just implement those into that project. But then also in those sections where you like describe the project, I'll usually put skills from the job description that fit inside the about the project. So if it was like, we want you to know Docker and Kubernetes and AWS, yada, 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 then all those skills that fit to the project, I will put inside that portion of the resume with the description. Be like, this project does X, Y, Z, utilizing the following: AWS, Docker, yada, yada, yada. That way we're checking those boxes off.
Gotcha. And would that also apply, since you guys had mentioned LinkedIn earlier? I have posted like phase 1 of a project that I have done. I had included a link of the tutorial that I had watched to kind of get that ball rolling and to, start practicing coding a lot more. Was that something that should be highly recommended each time you use a tutorial video, to kind of always include that whenever you're posting it on LinkedIn, or like whenever you're describing the project itself on your resume?
Personally, I say, yeah, keep all that stuff up to date on LinkedIn as much as you can. LinkedIn, actually, I didn't realize this until pretty recently. They have their own section for projects, which is really nice. So as far as like learning like smaller tools, things like that, you can definitely put stuff like that on your LinkedIn. But I would say if you're building out projects, things like that, even if they're kind of smaller, add them there. It can't hurt. Make sure it links back though to your GitHub at the end of the day.
Gotcha. Well, would you say it would be still a good idea to kind of link the tutorial that you use to kind of create that project, or just it doesn't really matter either way?
I don't think it matters that much either way, personally.
Gotcha. Thank you, guys.
Dean, you have a question, and then we'll get back into the presentation.
Yeah, it's kind of segueing off of what Jalen was talking about, and I've been kind of wondering this myself, just for personal use in resume in the future with GitHub is so going through. I'm also in the same class as Jalen with the computer programming, and a lot of these programs are very simple, kind of like trash programs. Is there something that I want to kind of like delete, or maybe even like put the projects that I have into like separate files to organize them? What's your all's thoughts on that?
On GitHub, I would say personally, I don't really delete stuff on GitHub. I do private certain things. So if there's something that's like a super tiny project that I don't really care for other people to see, I'll private it. I'm kind of a proponent of keeping most things public though. But that's sort of my opinion on like keeping things public versus private. Danny, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
Yeah, it all kind of depends. So if you had like 20 projects and they were all like 20 code U assignments that were really small, I would probably just keep one of them and move all of those into one repo and just like have a folder that's assignment 1, 2, 3, 4. That way it's just one repository of small assignments, so you can see the progress of learning versus having 20 repos separately for it.
Yep, keeps things a little bit more organized. But with that, I guess we'll keep going on to technical interviewing. So previously, you all have been through the career readiness workshop with Jenny and Candy. In that's a lot of talk about like cultural interviewing and being a good culture fit for places. Technical interviewing is a little bit different. It's not crazy different in the sense that they're trying to find the same things. So they're trying to figure out whether you're a good fit for that company, and they're also trying to figure out kind of what you know and what you sort of don't know. But like the image kind of suggests, the interview itself is way scarier than the actual job, just because you're going into an interview, you're trying to impress people. They're definitely going to ask you questions that you don't necessarily know the answer to, and that is part of the process. That is okay. You're trying to figure out kind of where your knowledge ends. So don't be intimidated. It's intimidating for most everybody, to be totally honest with you. but drilling a little deeper, like what are you expected to do in a technical interview? Typically, you are being asked to produce some kind of project, code, or do something. That can also mean that answer a bunch of questions about a certain technical topic or a group of technical topics. At the end of the day, they're looking for the best fit. They're trying to figure out how you perform under pressure. If you're able to talk about code and coding concepts, technical things intelligently with other technical people. How do you handle what ifs? But that's really what they're looking for. I will say I am going to drop in chat. There's a really great talk with Mark Hamner from Waystar and now Papa John's, who is he's been a friend of the program for a really long time. Has some great advice on applying and getting through the interviewing process. So I'm going to drop that here. I will say all of these links that I post, we'll have them all in a doc at the end and once we post the recording. So no worries about trying to capture them if you can't right now. But with that, let's go a little bit more into interview styles.
Yeah, so there's a couple different interview styles when you get into the technical side. We'll start with the first one, the timed assessment. So usually with that, you're going to meet with that employer and they're going to give you either it's going to be like a link to a repo or a document, however it is that they deliver that to you, but you'll get some kind of objective that they want you to complete in a set time limit. And some of them, it's a website that you log into, and then it'll be like a 2-hour timer. You work through it the best you can. And that, don't worry if you get stuck. Again, they're just trying to gauge where you're at, but definitely make comments about your thinking and how you went about solving it, why you did what you did. If you're really stuck, just try to put some pseudocode in there of the best understanding that you have of what the problem is and how you could potentially solve that issue. And then after that time limit, you'll meet back up with the employer, and then they'll walk through your solution with you, and you'll get to explain kind of your thought process, what you did, why you did what you did, and you'll just have a nice little conversation about it. And again, there's usually not like we're trying to get you and anything like that. It's just often it's problems that they solve all the time on the job, so they want to see if you can solve it or if you have the know-how how to do it. The other one is observed coding. So pretty much exactly what it sounds like. A lot of times it's going to be the same way. You're going to meet with them. They're going to talk with you about whatever the problem is. And then you'll log into usually a website or some cases, smaller companies, you'll like share your screen. You'll have VS Code up and you'll be coding, just kind of talking about what you're doing, why you're doing it. They might ask questions. They might not. They might be receptive to you asking them questions. They might not. They might just sit there. That's always awkward and weird, but it happens. So with that, same thing. If you get stuck, just start pseudocoding it out. Talk about what you think you should do, or I've never encountered a problem like this, but I think you would separate the list by even numbers, and then maybe use the pop function to pop in numbers after the series or something like that, whatever the question is. So again, they're not going to expect you to be 100% correct on these things, with the caveat of the big tech companies like Google and Amazon, places like that. Those folks typically expect you to be able to nail that code and solve it without an issue. That's just kind of how they set those up. But all the other companies usually just want to see your thought process, because if you got some coding experience and you can think through a problem, you'll be fine on the job. The take-home assessment, it's pretty fun. Similar to the other ones, you're going to have a meeting. They'll talk to you about the assignment. You'll be able to ask questions. A lot of times I've found that these are kind of populated from like bugs that have happened in the past. So, if me and David are working and we're looking for somebody and we had this weird bug that stumped us for a week or something, the week prior to the interview, we're like, oh, let's grab that and give it to the interviewees and see how they'll handle it. So a lot of times it's like non-proprietary, but it's like actual code that they have, like that they've worked through. So they just want to see how you'll do in that. So you'll have to have access to some kind of IDE, you'll code it up. Usually you'll submit a repo. They might have other ways that you do it. I've had to email like a Python file before, but usually it's through a repo. And then the other one is the whiteboard exercise. That's usually going to be like an in-person, obviously, there. And they'll have a whiteboard or chalkboard, and they'll just give you a question, or they'll have something up there and expect you to go up there and start, writing some pseudocode or some real code. They'll give you instructions. And again, just to walk through your process and your thinking of how to solve that problem.
Yeah, the last that's really common is a Q&A. So that's basically just you're going to sit down with an engineer or a bunch of engineers and talk about technical stuff. There's a bunch of examples on how those questions can go, but it's basically they're going to ask you questions about tools or technology you have on your resume, right? They're going to see if you kind of know what you're talking about on that stuff, or they're going to ask you scenario questions of like, hey, we have these certain problems, we're working on these certain projects. What would you do here and here? Or we went with this solution. Why do you think we didn't go with another solution? Stuff like that. So it's very conversational. It's definitely my favorite. I like it quite a lot. A lot of places will absolutely do that, and maybe in addition to something like a take-home assignment. So, but sort of tips for doing well. It says know your coding language well, but know whatever technology you have on your resume well. Be able to talk about it, be able to discuss it, tell people your thoughts on it, where you used it. Really, really pretty important. If you're a little rusty on something, brush up on it. That's no problem at all. But get really good about thinking about weird edge cases that may come up during something like an observed coding. Know what type of interview to expect. If you don't know what type of interview to expect, you can ask the recruiter. They will absolutely tell you what to expect. Practice. Leak code is free. Code Wars and HackerRank, I've been told, are quite good, but I personally had a lot of great experiences with Leak code, so I like it a lot. Cracking the coding interview with Gail Lockman McDowell is quite good. Highly recommend it. I will say too, if you get part of an assignment, if you're asked to do something and you don't really understand what's being asked of you, ask for clarification. That is expected. If you don't ask for clarification and you miss something, that's kind of on you. It's really relevant to the business world too. A lot of the times you're going to be dealing with non-technical teams that maybe give you really vague requirements or stuff that doesn't really fully encapsulate what you're going to need to do, and you need to sort of figure out what they actually want. So that's very, very relevant. If you don't know something, say that. I don't know is a completely acceptable answer. Lying is a great way to get yourself out of the running. You will absolutely be caught. Don't do that. Biggest thing about the I don't know, don't just leave it at I don't know. So don't just stop the conversation there. Talk a little bit about what you think that might be, what that technology might be, what the solution to that problem might be, how you would approach it. If you're on like an observed coding timeline or something, you run out of time, that is totally fine. Just sort of talk to them a little about what you might have done, or even follow up with them later. That's always impressive stuff. Last thing too on the interviews, make sure that you ask questions at the end. Really important. There's a bunch of things you can ask, but interview is kind of a two-way street. Some of my favorites are like how they define success in the first 3 months. What are some common pitfalls that new employees run into here? What opportunities they had for continued learning, stuff like that. There's a lot of really good questions out there that can give you a lot of insight into the company.
All right. So start out, you're going to get asked questions that you don't know the answer to. That's just going to happen. That's them probing to see where your knowledge base stops. And sometimes, I've had interviews where they start asking me questions and I'm like, oh, this is weird. None of these are fitting the job description. So, you might ask them then, and then they're like, oh, hey, we have this open role on this team as well. And you seem like you know a lot about that. So I've had interviews where started out interviewing for one job and then ended up getting a whole different job because I fit more in the role that they were looking for a different position. So it's definitely not a red flag, but go with the flow there. If you do find yourself knowing all the answers to the questions that they're asking, you're probably selling yourself a little short on that job. You definitely want to be looking for a job where you don't know everything, because you want to grow with the company as well. So you should be looking for more advanced roles if you're just knocking every question out of the park and not stumped by any of the questions they have. But ultimately, when you do get to those questions that you don't know, or don't have a frame of reference for, anything like that, maybe they mention a framework, they just say, hey, we use Svelte. And you're like, what is that? Ask them like, hey, what is Svelte? I've never heard of that. They'll be like, oh, it's a JavaScript framework. And you're like, oh, is it similar to Angular? You might have used Angular. And they're like, oh yeah, it's similar in this way. And then asking questions to show your curiosity about it, like, hey, why did y'all choose that over one of the other frameworks? And usually they have a very specific use case. So then you get to learn more about like what framework like some of its limitations and then the strength of another one. So that's definitely good stuff there. But that shows that you're engaged, you're interested, you want to know about what they're using and what they're doing. And on top of that, David kind of mentioned it, but at the end of that interview, it's always good, like if you think it went well and you just had those weird little issues, like not knowing what framework they used or something, I would recommend just spinning up a small little project maybe in that framework and doing a couple little things, and then send them that link. Be like, hey, look, I didn't know anything about this framework, but went home, checked it out. It's definitely really cool. I can see the benefits of using it. And if David does that and I don't do that, I didn't engage with them about the framework or ask them questions, David definitely looks a lot more attractive in that interview than I do. And he's going to get that call back versus me, who just is like, oh, yeah, I've never heard of that. Anything else? So definitely ask those questions. And, if you want to get that job and you feel like it's a great fit, then going to that extra mile definitely means a lot to them.
Yeah, so in tech, it can take a little time to get into tech. That there's no secret on that. But depending on the job market at the minute, it can take longer. Right now, the job market's actually looking up pretty well based on some recruiters that I talked to, so that's great. But it does take a little time. Most important thing is once you're in the industry, you're in the industry. And other things after that get a lot easier to land. Biggest thing is networking. Networking is huge. And that's either in-person or digital networking, just sort of getting to know other devs in the space, other people in tech. Can also be project managers, product managers, people that aren't necessarily fully technical, but getting to know more people in the tech space is always worth your time. I will say, don't avoid tech adjacent work to begin with. Sometimes that can be a really good way to get in. What I mean by that is like project management, product management, doing stuff in IT is a really good way to get fully into a tech role. That's what I did actually. Another really great way is to cycle into tech at your current company, if that's possible. Pretty much all companies these days need some kind of technical solutions or need some kind of IT support. You can roll over into that. Gives you a lot more room to dive a little deeper into the really technical stuff if you want to be a full-time dev or analyst. Or implement some of those new skills that you've been building in your current job, even if that's not an especially technical job. That's a really good way to show them your prowess and sort of get in that way. So note on roles to look for. So weird thing about tech, it's not very standardized. There's a lot of stuff in tech. So typically that requires a lot of research on your part to figure out what a company calls a certain role or certain group of roles. Really good examples like Coastal. They're a Salesforce consultancy, but they call junior level positions senior consultants. I find that really weird. I probably wouldn't apply to a senior consultant role because it says senior, and I don't really consider myself a senior, right? If you actually read the job description, though, I'm actually overqualified for something like that. So make sure to actually read the job descriptions at these places. Don't just pass over it because it says architect or something that seems very high level, or like staff engineer. You'd be really surprised what some companies consider those. Yeah, so don't really sleep on that. Look for jobs from a whole bunch of different sources. Our Slack is super good. Employer websites. So if you run into a company that you think is really interesting, find their job board, bookmark it. Check it fairly often. Again, right now the job market's looking up. More stuff seems to be posting. So definitely check that sort of thing pretty regularly. LinkedIn is a decent place to find places to apply for. I will say with job boards and LinkedIn, make sure to apply on the company's actual website. Lots of times they're just sort of scraping, like these job boards and LinkedIn, I mean, are just scraping the job board's website, and so they may not be fully up to date, and that can be really annoying if you put together this super great resume just to like apply to it, and then it's like, oh, it's been closed. That really stinks. Don't waste your time on that. So just go straight to the actual company job board there. Make sure to focus on roles that seem really interesting to you and that you actually care about, and care about the technology they're using, things like that. You'll be a lot better off if you actually have a interest in what you're working on. You really will be. Working with recruiters. Recruiters can be a little different in tech than in other industries. And a lot of people are pretty used to dealing with what's called internal recruiters. So those are just recruiters that work at the company you're applying for. Tech has a lot more external recruiters. So those are agencies, basically. And good examples of that are Brooksource, Vaco, Tech Systems are really good examples. But they are basically contracted to fill a whole bunch of roles at a whole bunch of different companies. And so they're pretty good people to get to know and to keep at the top of their email inbox. They have a lot of roles and a lot of stuff that they're wanting to fill. So definitely talk to them about what you're interested in doing. Be upfront with them about it. If you're willing to compromise maybe and do something a little different than what you initially tell them, let them know what all you're open to, because they probably have a job open for it either now or will in the future. At the end of the day, do your own research on companies and do your own research on jobs that have been posted. Just because they send something to you doesn't mean you'd actually enjoy working there. You are kind of responsible for vetting what you would like to work at. So pretty important you check out that stuff. Last thing too on that, hiring scams, be aware that they exist. Generally, they're pretty easy to spot. Some of them can be pretty clever. As a general rule, if something seems like it's way too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And if you're ever not sure about a certain company, you think they're a little sketchy, let one of us on the careers team know. We can help you figure out if they are sketchy or not. And another way is to just type in the company's name and then scam after it and Google it. There will definitely be somebody telling you that it is a scam if you do that. Granted, you're going to have to sift through some results a little bit. Some people are just going to be angry because they didn't get a job there, but some people are actually going to talk about horrible experiences they had, if there are any to be had. So that's a really good way to figure that out. So a lot of people here are career changers. I was a career changer, so I used to be in education. In my opinion, being a career changer is a massive asset to you. You have a ton of soft skills that somebody who has been in tech their entire career don't necessarily have. You're able to work on teams really well. You're able to communicate well. You have great business acumen, almost undoubtedly, or you have really great industry specific experience like healthcare. But with that, it takes time to get in from the outside. Don't get discouraged. It can be a little bit easy to talk to other people about sort of your job search and how things are going, how you feel like things are going. Networking is a really good way to talk with others about their experiences. That's helped me in the past quite a bit. But with that, you will eventually get in if you continue to build out your skills, network, and apply to stuff that interests you. You really, really will.
All right, I'll jump in now. So, do you need a college degree? So, big answer here is no. So, we're seeing it more and more now for roles that are dropping the degree requirements. It's still a very nice thing to have, but it's definitely not necessary anymore. I saw recently Google posted an article. It's like the CTO or one of the heads of engineering. He actually prefers hiring folks without degrees now that have experience because they've had to figure out problems on their own, and he said they're typically better problem solvers just through that experience. But some places are absolutely going to hire it or have it to get hired. So like your higher level positions, your management, the C-suite executives, things like that might require that. And then like really niche areas, like if you're wanting to be a full AI developer, something like that, they might require you to have that degree because there's a ton of math involved and you kind of need the paper there to show that you can actually do it unless you have a ton of super killer projects. But you'll probably be scouted before you're out there applying for those roles in that case. But much to what David said, use that experience to your advantage. So if you work somewhere in like the restaurant industry, then you're still working in that industry. Look around, there's like the Clover systems. That's like a big point of sale system that restaurants use, different ones like that. Look for jobs like that, start applying. Those are definitely, I'd rather hire you that's had 10 years of restaurant experience that have used the system for several years than somebody fresh out of college that has no experience in the restaurant, but they have that coding experience that you have as well. You're going to know how that product is actually used out in the field, and you probably have some way better insights than the development team has that make it in-house. So use things like that to your advantage for sure. And the big deal about the degrees in the industry anyways, is to show that you had a commitment to something and you could finish it. And then there's that industry standard curriculum, and then there's a known timeline of learning. And that's why we stress your GitHub so much, because it kind of checks all those boxes. It shows that you can start something that you finish by showing those projects, going through the program here at CodeU. That's, you started a program 6 months ago, you're going to graduate. You did that, you set out to do it, check that box off. There was a curriculum that you had to follow, and then you have that timeline of commits going through. So the longer that you're working and doing projects, the longer that timeline gets. So, if you don't get a job in the first 3 months, definitely sucks. We've all been there, but that's 3 more months on your timeline that you've been learning. So that creates an even longer track of learning. So that's pretty awesome. We'll jump into the elephant in the room. So is AI taking over? And ultimately, no. It's just another tool that we're going to have to develop skills with and learn. It's definitely making our jobs easier in a lot of cases and then harder in some cases. So definitely just get in there and start using those tools. Obviously, more so outside of the capstone project. Don't let AI generate your whole capstone project. So that's no good and you won't pass, but definitely use them where you can in that regard. But then, on your other projects, start playing with the AI agents and things like that. You can get some free tokens to build some little mini projects and stuff like that, see how they work. But it's making a lot of jobs much nicer. like Q&A, for example. There's a lot of automated testing suites that are really good. They're still having folks in there manually testing and doing their own testing as well, but it's just able to write a whole bunch of tests that would take a team much longer to write. We could throw it in the air if they're better or worse, but they're seeing a lot of that coming through, so you can potentially detect issues faster. Know a lot of folks are using it for cybersecurity. It's usually not the end-all be-all, but again, it's much faster than we are as humans, so it's doing much faster scans and things like that, handing it off to us to then identify those problems correctly and make those solutions. And a lot of DevOps tools are being developed around it as well, but it's all the same stuff. You're going to have to be back there. Every speech or talk I see given about AI tools and development is the end user. So you programming, you are responsible for what it spits out because you're the one that's supposed to review it and write the tests and submit the PRs and all that. So if you take the server down or delete the database, they're going to come back on you, and you can't just be like, oh, well, the AI said it was right. And it's good enough for me. So definitely get in there and figure them out, but keep those skills sharp. That way you don't delete the production database.
Yeah, talking a little bit more about the human element. I mentioned a lot about like networking with people. Well, where do you find those people? Regional Slack channels and interest groups are really great. So Cincy Tech Slack is very solid. Bluegrass Developers Guild is also great. So is the Louisville Tech Slack. I'll just post real quick in the chat a whole bunch of others that are really solid, Discords as well. But a lot of these, they meet virtually, and a lot of them have in-person meetups if you can attend them. Highly recommend doing that if possible. With that though, we keep up really well with a lot of the tech events that are going on in Kentucky, honestly, in sort of the Eastern, Central, and Louisville area. So make sure to check out the Slack channel for that. But reach out to your already established network. There's probably people you already know that are connected in tech somehow. So definitely connect with those folks, like old coworkers, people that you've gotten along well with at previous jobs, or just people that you've gotten along well with in general. Contacts from your hobbies. So like if you have a running group or you're a big outdoor person, you'd be surprised how many people are in tech. Tech's a really big industry, so you can find a lot of cool people that way. But those are really solid ways to pick up folks. Conferences are also great. I know that they typically cost money, but if you volunteer at them, they're free for you. You work for a little bit, and then you get to hang out and network with a bunch of cool people. So those are worth volunteering for if you can. Talking to other people at hiring events and networking events, that can be kind of nerve-wracking. But keep in mind, the people are at a networking event because they want to network. If they don't want to talk to you or network, then I don't know why they're at that event. So don't worry so much about them not wanting to interact with you. They definitely do want to interact with you, and they also want to make a great impression on you as much as you do with them. So obviously at networking events, it can just be enough to say like, hey, my name's David. I'm a technical project manager at CodeU. What do you do? Like, tell me more about yourself, stuff like that. At hiring events, they're usually a little bit more formal. Usually coming up to a table where a company has a bunch of literature about what they're doing, cards, things like that. When you approach them, you can give a little bit more of a long-winded explanation as to what you do. Talk maybe a little bit more about the technologies you use, stuff that you've been dabbling in. Make sure to connect with people on LinkedIn. That is really great. If you can take their business cards and then actually follow up with them, that is also huge. Don't just take them and never do anything with a business card. Definitely send them an email, a message on LinkedIn. Be like, hey, it was super great to meet you, Danny. I'm really, I really hope that we're able to talk about positions in the future, or like talk more about that really cool project you discussed with me, stuff like that. But don't overthink it. Yeah.
All right. So, what if you're not ready? Well, if you're doing everything that we've asked of you here, you're ready. But you'll definitely have those feelings, and you'll have that imposter syndrome come in. Um, Definitely check out online. There's tons of resources if you Google that. Find the best material that works with you, and just kind of work through those things and start to work on that. But definitely start applying for those jobs and doing all those next steps. And you've got, all the tools to do this. So if you don't take that first step and do that, you're never going to take the leap into it. So apply for the roles, do the networking, um, take any of the responses that you're getting. So if you get an interview, or you made it somewhat into a little bit further along in the process, ask those folks for some feedback. So what could have made me stand out better, or how did my interview go? Was there anything that I could have done better on my side for this to make me a better candidate in the future? Things like that. A lot of folks will get back with you and give you some feedback, and then just incorporate that, and just like the coding skills, incorporate that to the tool belt and keep growing from it. And one of the biggest things that I can say is don't stop coding, even when you're doing the applying. David, on the project manager pathway, we've got a few folks that have joined recently that have been applying for several months. And the first thing they said was, oh, we haven't touched VS Code in 3 months, and we don't even know where to start a programming language anymore. So you definitely don't want to be in that position if you're applying for jobs and then you get in the interview and like, oh, I haven't done this in 3 months. I don't even know how to start this, or don't remember how to, import a package or anything like that. You want to stay sharp on the skills and keep learning. So, and all that, don't count yourself out. Let the employer tell you that you didn't make the cut, because that'll stop you from a lot of great positions. That's gotten me on the door at a lot of good companies. I just applied, like, we'll see. And, I didn't think I had a chance. The next thing you know, I was working for a cool company doing really neat stuff and didn't feel like I was qualified, but was doing the job great. And then we're going to dive into, once you're on the job, asking questions. So this is super important. Whether it's an internship or actually in the position, we've gotten a lot of feedback from employers or former students. They see a lot of issues with folks either just not asking any questions, which is kind of a red flag, especially if you're new. If you pop in and you don't have any questions about anything, it's kind of troublesome. So you want to ask those questions and stay engaged in everything. But then there's also the exact opposite where, maybe you get a new ticket for an issue and I get 2 sentences in and then I'm pinging David like, hey, David, I don't know what this is and I don't understand this. And, you always want to get in there and try to figure it out, put some work in, 10, 15 minutes to try and figure out where the issue is or what the problem is, do a little bit of research, grab some links. Maybe you can't find a file that way. Whenever you do come to ask David, like, hey, David, I've got this issue. I looked up this documentation, but it doesn't seem to be applicable to what we're doing here. And then I also can't find this other component. And, David will be like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that documentation isn't it. You were close. It's actually this, or maybe it was that. He'll help me figure out what the pieces are that fit the puzzle there. And then he'll be more than happy to show me where things are at. But there's, doesn't feel great whenever somebody just comes in like, hey, I don't understand any of this. And you're like, well, what did you try? Or what have you looked at? They're just like, nothing. I just asked you. So it definitely shows engagement, and just that helps build that relationship with the other people as well.
Yeah, nobody's mad at you asking questions if you've tried first. But yeah, stat on upskilling, 85% of the time, upskilling leads to a salary increase. Definitely keep building your skills. It's really, really valuable to you, like in a tangible way. A little bit on code use successes. So we've had over 1,400 people get a new job in tech or promoted after they graduated the courses. Now, keep in mind, these are just the people who have told us that. So we have a lot of people who have definitely gotten promotions, gotten cool new jobs, and they just didn't tell us. Please tell us if you get something. We really do care about that. It's very important to us. We are invested in your success and want to see you succeed. and land in a place that you want to be in or satisfied in. So please keep us updated on how things are going there. Some next steps and priorities. So make sure your resume is updated with all the skills you picked up during the capstone project. Practice presenting your project, not only in prep for the capstone interview, but just for interviews in general, and sort of how you, so you get used to talking about your projects in a with another person, technical or non-technical. It's a skill that you need to build up. Meet with somebody on the careers team to build out a career plan and figure out where you want to land and how we can get you there. Apply to as many jobs as you possibly can. That is really important. Try to do one thing each day to keep up the learning momentum and show some activity on GitHub. Again, keeping that learning momentum is really important to being successful in technology. Keep an eye out for the Tech Careers newsletter once you graduate. Demo day is yet to be scheduled. We're getting close to nailing down a date for that, but we'll let selected participants know once projects are graded. Eventually, you will get hired. Keep that in mind. It may take some time, but you will get there. And we really want to know about it when you do. And we're here to support you as you find your way in tech. But with that, last slide. This is a reminder about all of the people on the careers team. Reach out to any of us. Has all of our emails on here. Definitely ping us on Slack first. That is probably going to be the fastest way to get hold of us. But beyond that, are there any other questions that we didn't hit, things we missed, stuff like that? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious. I know there is I'm not really sure. I haven't really looked into it, but I know there is an event going on March the 19th. I think it's like a job conference. Is there a way to look up like the lineup of the companies that's gonna be there, looking for new hirees or like any other information in regards to the event going on the 19th?
Are you talking about the industry night by chance?
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, it's the one on March the 19th.
Yeah, sorry, we had a couple of things on March 19th that are going on in the community. The one we're hosting is the industry night. So that I don't think we actually publish a list of people who are coming to that. We might be able to provide that to you, but I can make a note and see if I can get that off to you.
Yeah, if that's possible, I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'll look into it. Anything else? If not, you can always message us via Slack. We are around, so hit us up. We will get back to you 100%. Yeah, just let us know if you think of a really great question 30 minutes later, because that's totally what I do. This recording, as well as a whole bunch of the resources and stuff that we dropped in chat throughout, we're going to post a little later once we figure out which recording makes us look the best. And that's pretty much it.
Yep. And definitely
Thanks,
if you want career advice, if you're, deciding you want to be a back-end developer or something like that, and you don't know how to get there, you can always ping us and we can help you develop a plan for that, like kind of next steps pieces
Yep.
to learn and all that good stuff. We're happy to do that. Happy to onboard you on the project management load and build some projects with you as well.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, everybody.